everyone? Welcome to another episode of Keeping Up the Conversation. I am your host, Miss Tori, and that guy right there is my co-host, Big Ken. What's going on?
What's up? What's up?
Every time I watch that intro to the
Hmm?
show, it just, it's always a reflection of how far KUTC Live has come. I know that we've done a whole lot of interviews, and I know with Black Lives Magazine, I've done a lot of interviews, but just collectively together, it just reminds me of it. Just I was reflecting. Okay.
Yeah. We've
Um.
we've come a long way in a short amount of
Yeah.
time. So that just lets people know how much hard work we're putting in over here because
Yes.
we're trying to make moves.
Exactly.
Definitely.
Exactly. All right, everyone. You know the drill. At the top of the hour, we always start the show off with our what? Our hot
Hot
topics.
topics.
That's right. So, hot topic. Okay, so former Packers quarterback Brett Favre. Yeah, he was with the Packers, right? Yeah. He owes Mississippi like $600,000 in speaking fees for events he never even attended. Mind you, his net worth is like $100 million. The former NFL quarterback promised to repay the state after an audit released in 2020 revealed a 1.1 million dollar had been paid to Favre's company, Favre Enterprises. Now, the amount was part of a $94 million in welfare spending that was questioned by auditors who said they either saw clear misspending or could not verify where the money was lawfully spent.
Hmm.
And Mississippi is one of the poorest states in the U.S., and the $94 million was earmarked for the temporary assistance for needy families program. The TANF. Is that what it's called? TANF, TANF.
I guess. Got me on that one.
The audit claimed Far Enterprises was paid $500,000 in December of 2017 and $600,000 in June of 2018. And Favre was supposed to have made speeches for at least three events. Their audit's reporter said upon a cursory review of those dates, auditors were able to determine that the individual contracted, Brett Favre, did not speak, nor was he present for those events. Favre, I gotta say that Favre has not been accused of a crime yet, but come on, Mississippi, you know, why not show up at these events? Was something else more important than? I mean, come on,
I
is
mean, that's a lot of money though.
it
That's a
really
lot of
is
money for
from
you
a
not to do
yes.
what you're expected to do. But my only question would be, did he actually know he was supposed to be speaking? Because,
Well, yes, because look, a big kid, they paid him the money.
but
Where did
what
he
I'm
think the
saying
money
is,
was coming from?
I don't know that Brett Favre handles his own banking and his own, day to day. Maybe he has a person that does it. And maybe this person may have set something up or may have scheduled him or whatever the case may be. And maybe he wasn't even aware of this until it hit the news.
In 2017 and 2018, he had no idea that he was given over $1 million,
I mean, you
or
gotta
almost, yeah,
understand,
over
if
over,
you
over
if,
$600,000.
if you're worth 100 million and somebody puts a million, that's not
Oh,
really
that's
going
like
to set
three
off an
cents.
alarm for that's not really going to set off an alarm for you. So
Oh my
all he knows
God.
is he's rich and I'm still rich and what I'm saying, and I got more money now. So, I don't know. Like I said, with those type of
Yeah.
things, it could be so many moving parts with people who have that much money
I
because
mean, you're right. It probably went unnoticed. However, if it did go unnoticed, you would think that Brett Favre or someone from his team would have said that. That has not been said. So right now, just like uh they did, we're gonna earmark your comment and we're gonna move on to the next thing. So the CDC panel endorses Pfizer's COVID vaccine for use in adolescents, clearing the way for shots to begin Thursday, tomorrow. So during today's meeting, CDC officials said there were no serious adverse events associated with the Pfizer BioNTech shot in 20 to 15-year-olds out of more than 2,000 children in the company's clinical trial. Most recipients, get this, I don't know it's kind of backwards, was most vaccine recipients, 91% experienced side effects of some kind. The most
Mhm.
commonly reported side effects were pain at the injection site and in joints and muscles, tiredness, headaches, chills, fever, according to Pfizer scientist Dr. John Perez. Now, um, after Wednesday's vote, several members expressed excitement that members of their own family could now get vaccinated. Others noted that access to the shots will help kids return to some normalcy after suffering a year of mental and social challenges due to the pandemic. What are your thoughts, real quick, Big Ken, on vaccine being available to kids?
I think it's like any other vaccine at this point. Kids take other vaccines, and in a lot of sense, kids take the vaccine when they're younger, and then as they get older, they don't have to take it again. So hopefully, this is the case with this type of deal, that it's not something that they just have to continually take, or any of us continually take. But I think at this point, to me, now this is just my personal opinion, Pfizer seems to be the most reliable shot out of the ones that are available.
Hmm.
So if they're going to give the 12 to 15 years old kids the shot, the Pfizer is probably the one that I would choose. But and for myself, I said if I actually got the shot, it would have to be the Pfizer. But I also know that it's important for these kids to get back to some type of normalcy. So,
Yeah,
I mean, will there be issues with the shot? Will people have side effects? Will the kids have side effects? Hopefully not too much, but I know as a human, human body, you're gonna have a reaction to certain
yeah,
things, and that's just part of the vaccine thing. But
yeah,
yeah, I think it's it's moving in stages, and it's at that point now where I think if they're gonna get the shot, might as well go ahead and
yeah.
go for it.
Yeah, and you're right. As with anything that's new, especially something like this, this shot, you have to just, um, there are going to be some type of side effects. It's like, hey, we're trying to work out, work through this, but it's, for the most part, it's safe. And I too am ready for all kids to get back to normalcy, for them to, reconnect with their friends and their classmates. And so,
I mean,
so
are you saying that you're ready for your kids to get out your house? Is that what? Because that's what I'm hearing. That's
no.
what I'm hearing.
No, that is how rumors get started, okay?
I
That's how
don't
rumors get
know.
yeah, go get that shot. So anyway, so I'm this next hot topic. To me, it's a hot topic because I really have respected Felicia Rashad a lot, because just for her work in the community, her philanthropy. But anyway, Howard University announced today that the uh, alumna Felicia Rashad has been appointed dean of the recently established College of Fine Arts. The esteemed actress graduated magna cum laude with a bachelor in fine arts from Howard University in 1970. She mentored the late Chadwick Boseman while teaching at Howard University when he was a student there. Um, Rashad says she received a call, and this is a great story. I remember watching her. I can't remember if it was on CNN or 2020, but I can't remember. But I remember her saying she received a call one day from a group of students that had auditioned and had been accepted into the British American Drama Academy's midsummer program, but they couldn't afford it. They couldn't afford to attend, because it was expensive. And so she said she made a phone call to a friend, and he called me back, and and they talked about it for about 5 minutes, and he said, "Okay, I got this money, Rashad." And that friend was Denzel Washington. And so I remember her telling that story, and it's always such a touching story. When people I always say, again, when people can reach back,
Oh, yeah.
and pay it forward. Just in case our young people don't know, Felicia Rashad starred as Claire Huxtable in The Cosby Show when it ran on NBC from 1984 to 1992. Rashad stated, "It's a privilege to serve in this capacity and to work with the Howard University administration, faculty, and students in reestablishing the College of Fine Arts." So she starts in that position on July 1st. So a big kudos and a big congratulations to us. She's still
Y-
remaining in her art.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah. I mean, for us growing up with her as, Claire Huxtable, mom on one of our favorite shows at that point in time. You said 84 to 92.
Yeah.
Around that time I was 4 to 12
No one
during
said
that
anything about
span.
age. No one
I
said you
was
even have
4
to
to
say
12 during
that.
that span.
We're
So,
just
we kind of grew up with her, but it's always a great thing to see people, transcend after their what they're known for. So she's known for acting and she's known for, being on TV, which she still is.
yeah, yeah,
But
because she
she
stars in the show, the series This Is Us.
yeah,
But
but
yeah.
what people do outside of that in their personal pursuits shines a broader light to me on who that person really is, because we see them in characters on shows and on movies, but this gives us a glimpse into who they
Oh,
really
yeah.
are.
Exactly,
Yeah.
yeah. All
Eh, eh,
right, so you know what time it is? It is time for, fun facts with Big Ken.
Big Ken's fun facts. All right, so we're here another week. Y'all know I bring you fun facts every week. If you all remember, a few weeks back, I talked about some fruit being very expensive, very expensive. A
The
pineapple,
pineapple, the
eight
pineapple.
thousand dollars for a pineapple. It was a special pineapple, but $8,000 for a pineapple is a lot of money for a piece of fruit. Well,
Yes,
with
it
summer
is.
approaching, and it is Texas. So you know what time it is. If it's in Texas and summer's approaching, what do we got?
Watermelon.
We got watermelon, people.
Aha! I got it right. I rocked.
We
I got it
got
right.
watermelon. That juicy fruit
I
that
hate
people wait.
watermelon, by the way.
Well, I was going to get to that. I was going to
Okay.
get to that because actually I don't like watermelon either. I grew up and my mom, he was probably watching, she ate watermelon just about every day of watermelon season. Anytime there was watermelon available, she ate it. And I think I just burnt myself out and I just didn't want it anymore. But if you live in Texas, watermelon is a staple for what we do here, especially when it gets hot outside, and we often search for the best. But I ran across some information, and guess what, Texas? We don't have the best watermelon, obviously.
Oh, you should have a
It's-
button that says, "Oh."
Nope, nope, nope. But you know what? Did you know a watermelon once sold for $6,000 in Japan?
Oh my goodness, pineapples and watermelons. We're not gonna even have
Six
a fruit bowl.
$1,000. But this was no ordinary watermelon. This was an 18-pound Densuki watermelon. Or
Oh my
Densuki.
god.
Densuki. Yeah, that
Densuki?
sounds better. That sounds better.
Densuki.
Densuki. Watermelon. These watermelons are only grown on the Japanese island of Hokkaido. The
Okay.
rind of the watermelon is such. Let me show you a picture. Boom. This is what that
Oh my
watermelon looks
god.
like.
Is it in packaging?
That watermelon comes in that packaging. That watermelon is packaged that way naturally because of the very black skin. It starts out as a
Oh,
dark green,
wow.
and as it starts to ripen a little bit, it gets darker, it turns black, and the blacker the outside of it, the sweeter the inside of it,
Mhm.
generally,
Right.
based on their terms. So that's what happens. They were able to, allow one to ripen, and it grew to an 18-pound watermelon. And somebody was willing to pay
Wow.
six thousand
So do they
dollars
do
for it.
they still have this watermelon?
Yeah,
Do they still grow these watermelons?
these watermelons still grow. They still sell them. On an average, those watermelons run you about $250 American money.
Wow, you're gonna eat $250.
Yeah, $250 American money for a watermelon, but it's
Wow.
special. And those watermelons still, grow over there, and they have a variety of them. So the top quality ones still will, get anywhere from 1,000 to maybe $4,000, and they auction them off. So,
Oh.
if you got money like that, maybe you can look into that and order one. And then next time you have an event, you can have it on your table and feed it to your friends and show them how much money you really has. Like Brett Favre, he has all
Yeah.
that money. Maybe he can
That
order
he just
one.
lost track of, yeah.
Yeah,
So
he had money he lost track of. Just go ahead and lose track of another $5,000 and get you a Densuki mushroom.
water.
I mean, watermelon. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. watermelon.
Mushroom, are you
Yeah,
hungry?
yeah. But I just wanted to add this one little caveat to the end. Now, I don't like watermelon, but for some strange reason, I do like these watermelons.
What is
So
that?
it's a yellow meat watermelon. You've never seen that?
Never have. I have no
Well,
reason
you're
to.
missing out, and maybe you might change your opinion of watermelon if you have that. So, people, if you know where to get a yellow meat watermelon when season starts, inbox me because I need to have one, and I'm gonna share it with Tori, and we're gonna talk to you all about it on the show.
Yeah, let me know because I have never been real quick. I know we got to move on, but real quick, I don't like watermelon because it's so strange. The consistency in my mouth feels funny and it makes me gag. It just I've tried to eat it, but I cannot. It'll like I'll put it in my mouth and it'll just come right back out.
I
Just
think you've been eating the wrong watermelon. You need to find a watermelon expert that knows how to thump them and fill them and do all this stuff and get you a good one. That's what that
you know what
is.
it is? You know what it is? I just thought about it. I know what it is. I cannot eat cheap food. That's what it is. So I need to go get me one of those 250 to $1,000 watermelon, and I bet that will feel a lot better.
Yeah, go ahead. You have a lot of money to just throw out there. So, go ahead. And just
Okay.
let me know how it goes. I mean, hey,
I will.
you,
I
you
will.
you can just let your boy have a slice.
I pay for that. All right. Thank you, as always, Big Ken's
No
fun
problem.
facts. Always appreciate the knowledge. Now, our guest today is a PhD associate professor of anthropology at Stockton University in New Jersey, where she has taught since 1986. She is the founder and chair of the LGBTQ Youth Safe Space Initiative at Stockton University and an advocate for the local LGBT community. Welcome to the show, author of Drag Queens and Beauty Queens, Contesting Femininity in the World's Playground, Dr. Laurie Greene.
Hi.
Hey there, how
Oh,
are
hello.
you?
All right, right away, watermelon lover. Love
Are
it.
you serious? Oh my gosh, I don't know. I
It's
just
so
can't.
refreshing. I don't understand. It's so
I don't
refreshing.
know. And you know what, Dr. Green, when I used to see my brothers and sisters out on the back porch, you're just literally just juice running down. I wanted that feeling, but it just couldn't. It didn't happen. So
We all got our
honestly,
thing. Or as we say in Philadelphia, we all got our John.
there exactly. There you go. Anyway, welcome to the show.
Thank
I'm
you.
so glad you are
Welcome.
on the show. We were talking about you before we went live because we were just talking about how interesting this topic is, and we are always the ones who want to, and our audience, of course, the knowledge. What's important to us is knowledge and informing us, staying informed, and then also informing our audience. So I want to thank you so much for coming on the
Thank
show.
you for having me.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
okay, so before we get started, explain to us and our audience the difference between drag queen and the gay culture.
Well, actually, it's not so easy to give the definition of drag queens anymore. But traditionally, we would think of a drag queen as a man that dresses up as a woman for the purpose of performance.
Mhm.
And not only that, but the audience is in on the understanding that there's a man in a costume as a woman. So it's not meant to be an impersonation that is not knowledge, not the common knowledge of the audience that's watching.
Mhm.
And drag is quite iconic in the gay community because drag queens have always been on the front lines of all the political movements that have come out of the LGBT community. I like to say that drag queens are unapologetically gay. They sort of
Okay.
present themselves on a stage without any apology, with all of the accoutrements of femininity, even though they're men.
Mhm. Okay. So that's really interesting because I never had one thought one way or the other, but here's what I do know and what I have seen. And so
Mhm.
maybe you can help me with this. I have seen people that are during the day, they are lawyers, they're doctors, but then at night, um, they dress in drag. It doesn't mean that uh, they migrate towards being gay or anything. It's just a thing. But what really perplexes me is that why why do they still hide it? You know what I mean? Is it because the society is not going to accept? I don't want you to represent me,
Yeah.
Mr. Lawyer, drag queen. You know what I mean? So why is it not? Why do they hide it?
Um, this brings the point about how diverse the group of people that do drag, and we're just talking about drag queens now rather than drag
Right.
kings, because that's a whole
Yeah.
nother,
Yeah.
not actually the same sort of discussion. But in reality, all different kinds of people do drag. There's even women that do drag, and they're called bio queens. So,
Wow.
I don't look like a drag queen, so I would have to dress up and learn how to lip sync and have a talent, and be entertaining. And some straight men are drag queens as well, but mostly the vast majority of drag queens are gay men.
Mhm.
And I think, if I'm understanding you, because most of them are upfront about being drag queens, although they don't have a desire most to be women. This is what they choose to do as a performance style.
Mhm.
They consider it a very important form of self-expression.
Mhm.
And if they're different than someone who cross dresses or someone who's a female impersonator, there's a different intention doing drag often.
Yeah.
And I say this because there's such a diversity, of drag in drag, but there's also a diversity in the gay community that I think, we tend to look at any marginalized group and like just see them as monolithic.
Mhm.
And one of the reasons I wrote Drag Queens and Beauty Queens is because I wanted to show exactly how diverse the community is. And that even in this one community, Atlantic City, which is my hometown, and everyone knows about Atlantic City, but they don't maybe live here, they've never been here.
Mhm.
Even in this small place, this is a very small city. We all know each other. I could ask one story about what happened in the history of this gay community, and I might get 10 different answers
Oh,
because
wow.
people have very different experiences.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know?
And that's why it was really important for you to come on the show because, Ken and I, you know, is it Ken and I or Ken and me? I think it's Ken and me. We're not part of that culture.
Mhm.
However, society is changing so much that it's at some point you're going to run across someone that's gay, someone that's a drag queen, someone that's a cross dresser. And I think what's important is to know it's like before you go on a trip to a foreign country, you want to know a little bit about the culture. And so that's
Yeah.
why it was so important for you to come on the show. Now, one of the things in your book that you mentioned is camp sensibilities. I because I don't know what is that. What are camp sensibilities in drag performance and gay culture? Because I didn't understand it.
Yeah, well, camp is one of those things which we sort of know, as Susan Sontag said, we know when we see it, right? That we know when we see it, but it's hard to define.
Mhm.
But camp includes parody, irony, contradiction, humor. So it's a kind of humor that is said to maybe express the irony of being gay in a straight world. So, for example, the fact that you might have to pretend you're straight
Yeah.
or pretend you're more masculine than you are when you're not really, and the way people treat you. And so it's a way of expressing that in humorous terms.
Mhm.
And it is
Oh, I
it
see.
is a way, it is decidedly a gay communication. It's not that other people can't be campy, but really campy is gay. And in particular, it's associated with gay male culture as opposed to gay women's culture. And so it's a way of expressing sort of the irony of having to live this sort of double life, like W.D. Du Bois talks about, right? The
Yeah.
way of having that sort of double vision and being able to see the irony of yourself going through your life as a person of color. It's the
Mhm.
same sort of thing. In camp, it's just for the gay community, the way they
Oh,
express that.
I had never, ever, 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 ever heard of that.
Mhm.
And when I went to research it, like, what does it mean? I got a different definition because I don't know if it depends on, you know, whose view you're
Mhm.
looking at, because I thought when I was doing the research, I thought when you talk about camp, it almost means embracing and laughing at at who you are. And so that's why I was like, I can't wait she comes on the show. But is
Yeah,
there
I think that's a good definition, though. I mean, because
okay.
you're laughing at how ironic
Yeah.
your
Okay.
life is, and you're making light of what is maybe a painful situation or a difficult situation. You know, if we look at, for example, the world of comedy in general, because
Mhm.
camp is a form of comedy, right?
Yeah.
It's a comedic position. And notice who comics are. They're often people of color, Jews, gay people, fat people, maybe. You know, we might have someone that's a redneck on purpose. In other words, these are people that are marginalized. And so they speak of their experience in humorous ways. You rarely have just like an ordinary, boring, straight white guy being a comedian. There's always like
Right.
some sort of shtick that makes them, you
Right.
know, less than normal, right?
Yeah.
To be funny. And so it makes sense that that definition is also a good definition of camp, a partial definition of
Well,
camp.
thank you, Ken. Did you hear what she said? I had a
Well,
good definition.
my thing is, this sounds like I'm very into comedy, so a lot of
Mhm.
comedians will tell you, and Kevin Hart even has a comedy special named "Laugh at My Pain."
Mhm.
So that's what this sounds like. That concept in which a lot of comedians base everything they do off of is finding creative ways to help you laugh at them with their own and with them through the experiences that they've gone through that might be painful for some, but it helps them get past it because it's kind of therapeutic for them.
Absolutely. It's a
Right.
way of coping with the difficulties of being a
Yeah.
gay man in society. And
Mhm.
again, it also can take the form of a reversal. So teasing people that are straight, for example, or it's a language also that they don't quite understand. So you can, you know, talk about them and the ironies of culture
Mhm.
that, you know, disenfranchises them, and they don't know you're insulting them. Like it's the same, you know,
Oh,
that kind of a thing. But it is particularly a gay sensibility.
okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Now, when you set out to write your book, this is kind of a twofold question.
Mhm.
When you set out to write your book, had you already been sort of engrossed in the I guess LGBTQ community or the drag queen community, or did you, when you decided to write the book, did you then have to go out and do a lot of research about
Mm,
it?
that's a great question. So a lot of people don't know what anthropologists do. I have my students ask me all the time, like, "What the hell are you doing?" I mean, when my parents were still alive, it was the same thing. Like, did you dig anything up today? Like, out of the
Yes, that's what I
I'm
thought.
like, I don't do that, Mom. I'm not an archaeologist, you know? So just to give you a little bit of foundation, anthropology is a science, but
Mhm,
unlike most sciences, we don't go into a research setting with a thesis that we're going to test.
mhm.
That's how you usually do it in science. Instead, what we do is we just immerse ourselves in a field, a place of interest. We participate in it for a period of time, a long period of time, and we also observe it while we're participating. And the interesting question arises itself. And so the answer to your question, that was the long answer, but
Yeah.
the shorter answer to your question is no. I mean, I have been to drag shows. You know, I am active in my community here. But really, what happened was I was interested in helping out a homeless youth problem that we have here in Atlantic City. We're one of the places where kids get dumped that are homeless, especially gay kids that are often ostracized by their family, right? And so I was interested in working that out. And I found out that a lot of gay kids that are on the street end up getting out because they start doing drag. They meet somebody, they start doing drag, they get pulled in to what are called drag families. And these are families of choice where older drag queens sort of, you know, tutor these kids how to do drag and perform, but at the same time they make them go back to school. They're sort of like their surrogate parents. And I became interested in it in that way, more interested. And then I had the opportunity to observe and volunteer for the Miss America pageant in Atlantic City, which is a charity event, has always started out and is still a charity event. And in doing that, the research question presented itself to me. And it presented itself to me like a sledgehammer this time. It's not always like that. So, for example, when I went to the Miss America pageant, I said, oh my God, like the Miss America pageant and the Miss America pageant. Why hasn't anybody written about this before? I mean, it's going to be an interesting project to see the co-evolution since Miss America in Atlantic City since 1930, right? The co-evolution of these pageants and how did this happen? And many people don't know too. If some people may be fans of Miss America, probably in Texas, right? Pageant country, college sport country, right? That the Miss America pageant is run by volunteers, and all those volunteers are from here in Atlantic City for generations and generations. And so this pageant, the Miss America pageant, is so much a part of Atlantic City culture, and the people here love it. Like when everybody else in the country would say, oh, is that still happening? This is like, it is like New Year's, you know, Halloween, every holiday put together here in Atlantic City. And so the fact that Miss America could also have this kind of validation here was just really interesting to me. And I wanted to understand how it happened. And in doing that, I understood that I could also use it as a vehicle to tell the history, what we call restorative history, because it hasn't been told, right, of marginalized people, this restorative history of the gay community here in Atlantic City.
Oh, okay.
I got a quick question though.
Yeah.
Now this might seem crazy to some people, but you were talking earlier about the difference between like a drag queen and somebody who's a cross-dresser. Like, can you break that down? Because I'm
I was
like,
going to ask that.
from the outside looking in, it all is lumped in for us.
Cross-dressing, but you know, a drag queen is doing this as a performance. They're not trying to look like a real woman. As Tina Burner, who was one of my interviewees and one of the pageant contestants and was just on RuPaul's Drag Race, so just a little shout out to Tina, said once, nobody mistakes me for a real woman. When I'm dressed up, I'm 8 feet tall and have, you know, and I wear, you know, I weigh 220 pounds, you know, and my makeup is over the top. So the idea is not for me to pass as a woman. Some people, you know, let me just talk a little bit about trans people as well, and trans women in particular. They're not drag queens, right? They're women, right? And so they're trying to live their lives and present themselves in a way that people will treat them as women that they are. A cross-dresser may have a fetish. You know, they just might get turned on by wearing women's clothes, and they may just do it in private. They may get off, you know, cross-dressing and going out in public and seeing if people think they're real women. There's lots of different reasons, but it's not a performance. It's more something that somebody does because it's something that it pleasures them in some way. And when I say a fetish, I mean that it pleasures them in some way to do it. They're not doing it to make a living or to express themselves politically or to be funny as a comedian. They're not doing it for that reason. So that would be a shorthand on some of the differences. And we also have in the POC community of gay people, we have ballroom, like you might know about Paris is Burning, a very iconic film. And this is where gay men of color would dress up and do competitions. So if you know about the show Pose.
Yeah, I was just going to say that. I was just going to say that, yeah. That's
based on the film, the documentary Paris is Burning from the 1970s. And those women, those gay men who identify often as women, they're not necessarily drag queens. They may be trans women or women that, or what we would consider gay men that are, to them, they are women, and they are presenting themselves in ways that they believe are real, right? So they talk about realness, like I want to look real. So they're not going over the top and being campy, which is part of camp, is going over the top,
right?
Like crazy, exaggeration, right? Eyelashes this long. They're getting dressed up maybe like the girl that stands on the corner with a hoodie,
Mm-hmm.
And some of them dress up in gowns, but ballroom is a different thing often than drag as well. So it's very diverse and complicated and interesting.
Now, I want you to talk about when you were doing your research, talk about the conflicts you found between the gay community and the drag community.
Yeah, well, it is interesting that, and it's not unusual in culture, that individuals that are powerful and that break rules, right, that break norms, are both valorized, right? We admire them, and on the other hand, we fear them because they have a certain power. And you see that same dynamic sometimes happen within the gay community. So, and sometimes some gay men and gay women as well, who are find them to be minstrelizing women or minstrelizing gay people. They're like, oh, we're not all like that. We don't all walk around like that. So they might resent drag if they feel it's minstrelizing, right? Exaggeration of gay features, and it makes us all look, like we're like that. All the stereotypes they talk about, they not like it because of that. And then there are some gay women and probably some men that believe that it is misogynistic, that it makes fun of women, right? That
I can see that.
Right, rather than being a tribute to them or making a statement about the absurdity of gender rules that we have in our culture. And that is the early feminist critique of drag. I don't agree with that critique now that I've studied this deeply at all. I believe that the gay men that do drag, they're doing it to actually more make fun of the strictures, the confines of masculinity. And they say, like, women get to wear all these cool clothes and change their hair and, walk and walk differently. And we just wear the same thing all the time and be all constrained. And they also look at it as the absurdity of these rigid roles in gender, that if we step out of them, we are teased or harassed. And it's not so common in women, maybe because, for example, right now I look all femmy, but growing up, I was a real tomboy. And so, but that was okay.
Yeah.
Nobody made fun of it because women have more latitude. This is their point about doing drag. Women have latitude. They can wear men's clothes, right? They can do sports. They can act tough. But if a guy acts a little feminine, that's not allowed. So their point is they're critiquing masculinity, not femininity.
One of the things that when you were talking, just when you explained that, one of the things that I thought about was your word, or not your word, but the word camp, because this is what I don't understand. And one thing I like to joke around, but one of the things that I try not to do is offend people. But I want to know, when you have, let's say, a gay guy, why do they go above and beyond to like snap their fingers and they're like, "Hey, girl," but then they talk about the gay community has this sort of like, I don't know, riff or tension with the drag queen. It's almost like if you're doing all this, all you have to do is put on drag and you're there. So why?
Not all gay men. I mean, not all gay people. Gays love drag. I mean,
yeah,
not all of them.
yeah. So and you're right. See, that's what I'm trying to understand. So I'm sure there's other people trying to understand. But why as a woman, I don't do that. I don't do all this. And so I'm trying to see what is the emulation? What are you trying to say? Is it, help me, Dr. Greene?
Yeah. Well, I mean, gay men aren't trying to be women. They're acting gay. And they're when they act gay, like you're saying, when they have an affectation, that someone who is homophobic might be displeased about.
Yeah.
That affectation is there to express the fact that they're proud of who they are, and they're going to express it. Similarly to how any marginalized group might just in your face go, like, this is unapologetically me.
Okay.
And so, they're not, and I thought of another reason when you were talking, if you don't mind, you were talking about like why sometimes drag queens are not beloved in the gay community is that because they act feminine, and of course gay men are attracted to men, they might have more trouble dating than other gay men, because even though it's only a performance, it still sticks. There's a little bit of that sometimes drag queens talk about, like it's harder for them to date. It's not impossible, and a lot of them have partners, but that's sort of an issue too. So that's interesting because it has to do with the performance of gender rather than what their gender is. So, but the affectation is just gay people saying, you know what, I'm who I am, and I like it, and so I am going to do my version of who I am, and tell you who I am so you don't have to guess.
That, and that makes perfect sense, because it was one of those things where in hindsight, I'm like, man, I kind of always wonder why gay guys act like that. And it's just, you're absolutely right. It makes perfect sense. It's just like me, as a woman, acting a certain way and being bold about who I am. That's just how they're doing. They are, like you said, unapologetically being who they are.
I got a question though.
Yeah.
Ooh, I have a question about somebody like RuPaul, right? For us, for my generation, like, even I guess when we were kids, we didn't really see a lot of, what I'm saying, like the drag and stuff like that. And when we did see it, it was a little bit in movies. It wasn't just really pronounced. But as I got older, like RuPaul was one of the mainstays of drag. Like that was the person who, I guess, basically, if you thought about drag, that's where your mind automatically went to RuPaul.
Right. Yeah.
How big of a figure is really RuPaul for the drag community?
Ru is huge. And she's certainly iconic, and I would say not single-handedly, but mostly responsible for popularizing drag, so that people that are outside of the gay community are familiar with it. One of the queens in my book that I interviewed, this is a funny story. I can't tell you how much I love my job, by the way. It's to do this, but she said, it's great. I was on an airplane and I'm sitting next to this woman, and I was flying to do a gig, and she said, "Oh, what do you do?" And I said, "I'm a drag queen." And she said, "Oh, that's so cool." And she started talking to me about RuPaul. And this is somebody who'd been a queen for many, many years, and said he, was shocked because he was like, "I remember those days when I wouldn't even say it or someone would make me explain it to them." And somebody else said to me, one of the other queens said to me, Fifi Dubois, shout out to Fifi. She said, I can't say the name because I have one here. Alexa. She's going to talk, so I won't say. He said, I asked her what a drag queen was, and she gave me this great definition. So that shows you how much drag is now in popular culture. It's like, if people used to want to have a gay friend, now they want a drag queen friend. People want to have a bachelorette party in a bar, now they want to go to a drag show in a gay bar. And a lot of that, without getting into too much of an argument about it, is due to RuPaul's popularization of drag through Drag Race. There's no question about it, right? And so there are just as many straight people at a gay bar now, which is the traditional place where you would see drag, as there are gay people often, if not more.
Yeah. You know what's funny? I was thinking about what you were talking about when you were saying, going to a gay bar. I got to tell you, I have to tell you a really, really quick story. So one time my cousin and I, we were going to go downtown, and we were going to go out. And this lets you know how vain I was in my younger years when I was a hottie. Okay.
Whoa.
So
you and me both.
So we were saying, girl, I don't want to be bothered by any guys tonight. What should we do? Because we thought we were all that back then. And so we end up going to a gay bar, right? So we go to the gay bar, and we're just kind of like hanging out. And these two girls come up to us, and the first thing they say is, "You're not gay."
Well, we all got Gaydar,
Yeah, it was so funny. But anyway, we end up hanging out with them that night and just having a blast. And it just felt, it felt like, okay, so we aren't being bugged or harassed by guys. They just anyway. That was my cute little story.
But I got a question with her story. I hear that all the time. Can you talk to us a little bit about this Gaydar? Like, I hear that all the time. You've been hearing that for years. Like, what do you deem Gaydar? Like, what are some dead giveaways?
When you're part of a minority culture, little nuance of code for things. You don't have to say everything, right? And so you pick up on these things, right?
That's so crazy.
And as we like to say, whose family. You just go right away. You can tell. You can tell.
That is crazy.
People have, we have little signs and symbols too. We do. We stand a certain way. Thumbs in your pockets. That's like a gay girl.
Oh my gosh, that's hilarious.
Just the way you're interacting with the other women you're with, Ms. Tori. I think, like, for example, like straight girls tend to pod, like they'll stand in a pod and look around, like for guys who are looking at them, and gay women don't do that. So you would stick out like immediately. I would be like, no, mm-mm.
Yeah, it was so funny.
Not even. I don't care if you cut your hair and wear a bunch of jeans in here. It's not going to work for me.
It's so funny, Big Ken. I kid you not. I mean, like within 15, 30 minutes of being in there, those two girls came up to us and they're like, "You're not gay," but they were serious, but they were playing with us, to kind of like, and then we ended up hanging out, and it was fun and just kind of learning stuff.
Yeah, and I mean, if anybody's interested, I have a little section in the book about sort of like the history of these sorts of signs that people give, like,
oh, that's interesting.
The hanky code that guys have, this hanky code, which is like used to put different colored hankies in their pockets, and it would not only say they were gay, but it would tell people what kind of a gay man they were, like what they liked to do, or what kinds of people they were looking for. And women don't really have those, but there's a whole history of that. An interesting one that was particular to Atlantic City, where people used to wear certain kind of socks and other things, and like just sort of stand up on the boardwalk, because we had a real history of sex tourism in Atlantic City, and for forever, since the early 1900s. So it's we all had our little ways of communicating without saying.
That's interesting.
That's very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I want to just for a second go back to the Miss America pageant. So I know that it's been held in Atlantic City for a long time, just and I was kind of reading about what you wrote about it, and I know that the Miss America pageant helps promote the city as a tourist destination, but also it's you have the Miss America pageant, all that being held the same time. But I know society is resistant to change, but there is change. Change is coming no matter what. Do you think that these pageants will ever merge?
Never.
But okay. Well, look, before you say that, let me say this. So there was a time where the Miss America pageant was like, nobody wanted to watch it. But if you look at the drag pageants, they're so vibrant, they're so fun. And if you put those side by side, people would tend, if they had an open mind, would tend to navigate to the Miss America pageant. Okay, why would they never merge?
I love this question. This is a great question. One no one's ever asked me, but it's a great question. And it gets to the heart of the difference between these two pageants. The Miss America pageant has spent its entire life trying to justify itself as not a boobs and butt show, right? That it's a scholarship, and it's not just about beauty. And now they've even eliminated all the things that made it pageantry. There's no more swimsuit, there's no more runway, there's no more theme song.
Oh, wow.
You have to have evening gown, and you know what? Everybody's bored and nobody wants to watch it because there's nothing fun about it anymore. And the Miss America pageant has all the fun stuff. It's campy, it's silly, it's got all the glamour and the glitz, as well as the runway, and they advertise themselves now as we're the pageant with the swimsuit. I mean, And but it speaks to the difference of the purpose of these pageants. Female pageantry, like Miss America, on which all other pageants in the world are based, everyone. It is meant to show off what is considered ideal femininity in our culture. So whatever the norms are, wherever we're supposed to act like, the pageant tells us as women, right? Oh, you can have an opinion, but state it in a way in the interview that you don't insult anybody. So you have opinions, but you're not opinionated, and this and other, and women are fit, and when they wear a bathing suit, it covers everything, and they never talk when they go up in the bathing suits. The narrator talks about them, because standing there in a bathing suit and talking would be weird. And that's, you want to be the good girl, but you're also standing there in a bathing suit, right? It's like, and so all of these things that women go through in our lives, when people tell us what we're supposed to be like, right? It's all in the Miss America pageant, right? The Miss America pageant has nothing to do with that. It was started as a fundraiser to raise money and support people that were dying of HIV and AIDS. It's meant to lambast, poke fun at themselves, at their own community. It is meant to be entertaining, fun. It is not meant to instruct us on norms. It's almost the opposite kind of a beast, right? And especially in its early years, when it was very local, because now it's a huge pageant that is televised, and draws contestants from all over, potentially. In its early days, all the jokes were, local, and you couldn't even understand. That was all about people we knew. Everybody up there. It was decidedly not about any of that other stuff. And so I think what you're saying when you're asking them to merge is, can we make Miss America fun again?
Pretty much.
They can't, and that would be great if and by the way, the reason the queens and the gay community love the Miss America pageant is because they interpret it as camp. They're like, these girls can't really be like that.
Oh, yeah, I get it. Yeah.
Or like, the person that won talent played the red solo cups. That's about it.
Oh my God, yeah.
That talent sucks.
Yeah.
So they're interpreting it through this lens of camp, even if the girls in the pageant are not, right? So they're not even the same animal. But the Miss America pageant, why it evolved? Because, everybody in the gay community, when it was threatened, their very existence was threatened. We lost more people in Atlantic City per capita than any other place in this country during HIV.
Yeah.
And part of it's because the community was so, small and dense, right? And then, what they wanted to do was, we need to do something. And they did what they know. What do we know in this town? Entertainment, and we know pageantry.
Right.
And it was, just this like genius event that brought everybody together, and was incredibly impactful, not only on the gay community, but on the character of this city and on the Miss America pageant itself.
Right.
There are parts of the pageant that their origins are from the drag queens that were yelling at the girls in the parade, the Show Us Your Shoes parade, is all about that, and other aspects of the pageant that, as we say in academics, were queered, and
so they would because of this grandiose of me being who I am and who I want to be, and then this over here, Miss Prim and Proper, they're oil and water. You feel like they're never going to come together.
Never. Wow. If they did, it would be so fun.
It would be amazing. It would be interesting, and you would have people, because I learned my new word today, you would have people camping, but they would still be watching the pageant, because
I'm not sure that's the proper definition of camping.
But I'm just saying.
You know what? If I told
it's my joke.
If I told the drag queens I worked with that you think that these pageants should merge, that would be the best thing they've heard. ever. They would love
Really?
it. Oh, they would love it. They would.
I honestly, I'm telling you, I would love that. And when I say, people on the sideline will be camping, it's more on the lines of like you have the naysayers, or you have people just saying stuff. But yet the show is still going to go on. We've merged, but I think would be so much more interesting.
It would definitely be.
One one of the things I heard is queering of the Miss America pageant. What is that?
Well, it's when I'll put two things on either side of a spectrum, right? On the one hand, you have when gay culture, or we call it queer culture to try to cover everybody in all the alphabet, right? When queer culture influences straight culture, we call that queering. Much like, for example, we have right next to the gay community in Atlantic City on New York Avenue, we had Kentucky Avenue, which was the North Side, this very vibrant African American community that was right next to us. And that was an amazing jazz scene. And that influenced, right? It influenced that. So that would be, there's not, I don't know the word for it, but that's sort of an influence. It's constantly happening from marginalized people and gets incorporated into mainstream society that we don't get credit for. That's what queering is for the gay community.
Oh, okay.
And what we generally do, like we call something whitewashing when they take the influence of African American culture out of it. We call it straightwashing when they take the influence of gay culture out of it. And that's very much what has happened to the history of the Miss America pageant, is it's been straightwashed. And so one thing I wanted to do with this book is re-queer the pageant, like set the record straight about what the actual history is, much like we've set the record straight with other writings here in Atlantic City about the influence of the African American culture and the incredible jazz scene in Chicken Bone Beach, which is our famous beach for jazz.
Bone Beach.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, everybody played here. Everybody.
Wow. Now, I know that you are part of a lot of initiatives, and one of them is the LGBTQ Youth Safe Space Initiative. Tell us a little bit about that. I heard you mention at the top of the hour, so tell us a little bit about that.
Well, it is an initiative that unfortunately has been stalled, like many things, by COVID. So we're sort of in a holding pattern. But it is an initiative, and I believe one of the first of its kind, that tries to combine a center for LGBTQ youth who may have trouble at home or may have just trouble at school or don't feel comfortable dressing the way they want in public or being who they are in public. They can come there, and think of it like as a community center, but also there's places where we can get them services, a place, a conduit for services, or maybe even emergent housing if they need that for a little bit. So that's what a safe space is. But what we're trying to do at Stockton University is to combine that with a research facility. So we're not only serving kids, but we're also researching and collecting data so that we can provide that information to better serve kids and what the best programs are. So that's what we're trying to do at the Youth LGBTQ Safe Space at Stockton.
Do you think that there will ever be, so I know that you're doing this at Stockton University, but this is okay, I want to try to say this so that I say it right. People are who they are. And whether society thinks people are born a certain way or just their mental health and they become a certain way. But what I want to ask is, do you think that will there ever be some type, instead of a community space, will there ever be a school that's for people like that? Because let me tell you why I asked this. Because I was a teen mom, and as a teen mom, it was sort of taboo to be at high school and be pregnant. And so what they did was they had a school for pregnant girls. And although I was pregnant, I felt comfortable a little bit. So because here I am, this track star, and then I end up, I get pregnant, and then I'm not shipped off to this school, but it's like I didn't want to go there because I felt like they were singling me out because I was pregnant. I was a pregnant teen. And so, do you think that there'll ever be a school for people? It's funny to say, but people to just be who they are, gay, you know, trans. Do you think that society will ever?
Well, I hope that's going to be every school. You know what I mean? Like, I hope that's going to be every school. And of course, this is an issue, especially for trans kids. Even, we're pretty liberal here in New Jersey as a state and in our educational system. But we still have, so many issues surrounding trans youth.
Yeah.
But I mean, I can certainly see the value of traditionally Black colleges, traditionally women's colleges, when those are things that people choose themselves. But our hope is, and we should never get rid of those. For example, there's this whole discussion right now about how there's no more gay bars anymore.
Yeah.
And people say, well, why do we need a gay bar? We can go to any gay bar we want. We can go to any bar we want. And I say, yeah, why do we need Black churches? Black people can go to any church they want.
Right.
That's not the point.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
Like my space, right? That's my place, my rules.
Yeah.
So we want that to be available when we make it and when it's ours. But the hope is we still can all go anywhere we want. And so my hope is that that's what school will be, a place where everybody is welcome and where we learn how to respect people for who they are and appreciate them.
Yeah, I agree. I would love to see just schools, it's not necessarily the school, it's the person that's standing next to you accepting it. And if Joe standing next to you doesn't accept it, then he's going to tell his friend Steve. And then and the one thing that I do not like is a huge pet peeve of mine is bullies. And so that's why I was wondering, like, having a school for people who just want to be who they are. And
I know. Well, I mean, unfortunately, the school for people who just want to be where they are, it's a good idea because right now that's dropping out of school, right?
yeah,
I mean, that's part of the problem.
exactly.
But really, you know what? Change only happens at the level of society, right? It doesn't really happen with individuals. This is why we have to advocate for policy changes because a lot of people say things like, oh, people are just ignorant if they just knew somebody. But we all know here about exceptionalism, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't work that way. Even when we change individuals, we have to go back and we have to go on and change society. We have to change the rules so that eventually we live in a place that we think we live in, where everybody has the opportunities of equality and the same opportunities to be happy and healthy and live their lives the way that they'd like to. So that would be my hope, at least.
Well, I want to thank you so much for joining us today and just giving us a more clearer view into the drag world, the LGBTQ world, and then, of course, your world.
Thank you.
Yeah,
You're welcome. This was so much fun. Thank you for having me. And again, watermelon rocks. I don't know. I really don't.
Oh my gosh. Nope.
Maybe you need some Jersey watermelons. I don't know.
There you go. I told you I need to, you know what my taste, darling, is the $250 watermelon.
Of course.
We'll get that ordered.
There you go. You guys can find Dr. Greene's book, Drag Queens and Beauty Queens, Contesting Femininity in the World's Playground on Amazon. All right. Thanks again, Dr. Green. We really appreciate it. Bye.
Thank you.
Super awesome. See, I learned a lot. And, I know I may ask some weird, crazy questions, but it's so that I will understand. And I probably ask the questions that some of the people in the audience don't want to ask. So.
Yeah, that's what I was just going to say. But, no question is weird and crazy because a lot of people are just learning, a lot of different things about the culture. So,
yeah.
You don't know until you ask.
Exactly.
Or you just assume and you look crazy because, you don't have the knowledge when you meet people and you know how to talk to them and have a conversation with them sensibly,
Exactly,
And my whole thing is I've been telling people, when I was growing up and, in my early adulthood, I couldn't deal with the fact of, okay, these people are straight, these people are gay, everybody has a different outlook, but we're together, you should be over there, you should be over here. But I had to come to a thought process of everybody's human.
Yeah.
At the very basis of everything. So everybody deserves a right to live the way they want to live it. So with that being said, if you have a problem with the way somebody else live, then don't be around that person.
Exactly. Simple
But
as that.
respect them.
Yeah,
But respect
simple
them.
as that. Because
But respect.
that's where a lot of bullying comes in, because
Yeah.
people don't like the way someone lives their life, so they
Mhm.
want to fight them. They want to kill
Yep.
them. You know, they
Yep.
they want to do bad stuff. They just want to be bullies. And it's just like me. If I don't like the watermelon, I'm not gonna eat it. I'm not gonna go kill the farmer. You know, I just and that's kind of how you look at. Hey, listen to me. Listen to me. You remember that show? You remember that?
You in this watermelon. You really don't like watermelon.
You remember that show? That movie, Captain Phillips, when the
No.
pirate goes up to Tom Hanks and says, "Listen, listen to me, listen to me. I am the captain now." That's that's how this conversation is. Listen,
Okay.
listen.
Okay.
I'm the captain now. I already said what I
Yeah.
have to say. I don't have anything else to
Captain
say.
Watermelon. All right.
I don't have anything else to say. On
Mm-hmm.
that one. Other than, if you don't like someone else's lifestyle, you know what? Live your life. You can't, I always think of, like, how everyone says, well, so and so, or people look at me this way, people look at me that way. What are you going to do with a million people looking at you a certain way? You just have to continue to live, because you cannot control the thoughts and minds of those people and what they think. There's going to be 10 people that love you, and then there's going to be 10 people that hate you. So just can't control it. Just live your life.
That's correct.
So yeah. Anyway, so remember, you can catch KUTC live right here on Facebook every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Or if you missed the show, you can visit blacklineentertainment.com. And how do I end the show? I end the show with a quote. And this week's quote: design your business so that it serves your ultimate lifestyle. Until next time.
Make sure y'all keep up the conversation and go buy yourselves one of these good old watermelons, since Miss Tori don't like them.
Goodbye.
Keep up the conversation. Peace.
Peace.